Let's go.
Right. We are live here in our group. I'm making sure it goes to our event as well. So excited today to have Roger on. Roger, where are you calling in from today?
Tampa, Florida.
Tampa, Florida. How hot are you guys there right now?
It is burning hot.
Is it really?
It is burning hot. It is the heat of summer, and it's that humidity that sticks to you. So, fortunately, I'm used to it, and I love it.
Yeah, you have to love it if you live there, right?
Yep, absolutely. You
just run from one air-conditioned building to the next if you're going out, huh?
Yeah, I have a tendency to be in a place where I don't want to get, that a lot of that necessary sun that's just, and it sticks to you, and they get that sticky feeling after a while.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I'll leave that for the weekends when I don't have a suit, a suit or a shirt on. It's that I can do what I want to do on the weekends and be out and about in the sun. I don't care. So
yeah.
Yep.
Do most houses there have a pool?
It really depends. You can have their newer homes give you really custom designs, and you can have a pool in there or not. But next year, assuming the market is a little bit more conducive toward home buying, that's when I want to buy a new home at that point. So
yeah,
sounds great.
Whew, it sounds like a hot one. And I like hot weather, but I know sometimes it can get unbearable that you can't even go outside. So,
yeah.
It happens.
Yeah, well, we're glad everyone's here on our Facebook Live. You guys know, everyone out there knows we're here every Thursday at noon Central Time. And Purse Strings provides online tools and resources for women to help them make smart financial decisions for themselves and for their families. And not only do we provide the tools and resources, but we also provide a top-tier list of financial professionals who know how to serve a female market and are very seasoned in the work that they do. And we bring you Roger today, who's going to share tips and advice on hey, half the year is over, right? So let's look to the second half of the year and see what we need to do now to do kind of our financial checkup or check-in. Wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I can't believe we're halfway through the year. I really can't.
I know.
But that's a different story.
Well, in a way, it's great. We're flying through this. I don't know if you want to call it post-pandemic, but at least it's a step in the right direction. It's far removed from 2020 and what we were feeling then.
Right.
And so there's merit to, thinking, okay, well, we're halfway through 2021, a little bit closer to 2022 when I think we can get truly back to a normal state, at least in some respect. Right. So people feeling like, you know what, at least I can recover a lot of lost time. But, I think 2021 has been a great year. Again, it's been a year of learning and expansion and restoration for a lot of people.
Yeah,
Yep.
That's for sure. Yeah. And it's a good time to kind of stop, reflect on, the past six and a half months, see where we've come from kind of out of the pandemic and things. Well, we're not really out of it yet, but it's getting better every day, I believe.
Right.
And Maggie just did a great presentation to a networking group on really the ratios and really looking at your business ratios for starting today, Maggie, right?
Yeah, for the end of the year as well, because it's about 5 months left. So, it's not like we're counting down. It's not like anything big happens, but it's a nice goal benchmarker to, check your strides and see where you're going, especially mid-year, get back on that path, which is great. So it should be a good one today. Do you want to do you have anything else to say, Barb?
I always have something else. I always have something else to say. I'm just glad everyone's here. I'm glad Roger's here to provide us some great information around, do a self-check, if you will. We check up our health, we check up on our cars, we check up on lots of things. We need to check our financials. So good mid-year checkup. Roger will tell us all about it. So go ahead and introduce them, Maggie.
Yeah, so Roger is from New York Life Insurance, and he knows that there's many complex options, and making decisions aren't always easy, and that's why he's here to kind of help understand what's right for each individual person. Together, he believes you can create a strategy that's customized to your needs and goals, and he believes that you're in it together for the long haul, so you can count on him to manage and update and update the approach, as life changes, because it so ever does. But when Roger's not working, he's a big soccer guy, travel and cooking. He's also an avid reader.
Wow.
So you lit up there at soccer.
Yes, love it, love it, love it, love it. Yep.
Awesome. Well, we always like to talk about a little bit about what makes our professionals more human. They're more than just a financial guru.
Right.
So it sounds like you're a big reader and soccer guy.
I am. It's funny. I still play at 44 in competitive aspects. A lot of very high level competition, and I enjoy it. And I said I'm going to ride it till the wheels fall off. And when it becomes like I don't want to do it no more, then that will be the day I quit. But I'm having a lot of fun doing it.
That's awesome. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're so excited for your presentation, so I'll just give you the floor.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well. And we are at July 22nd, which obviously is a little past the mid-year mark. And I hope everyone is starting to get acclimated into the second half of the year and just really addressing a lot of different things. And like Barb was talking about, where we have a mid-year check-in with our health. And, I like to always say, if you're going to do a mid-year check-in on your emotional stuff, that should be daily. But so there's certain things that you would do from a checklist perspective in different areas. But when it comes to our financials, it's often overlooked. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Busy work schedule, kids, commitments, travel, and obviously right now we're in a peak level of travel season where people want to get out and do things, and which is great, but we also want to be mindful of the fact that right now is a great time to reassess a lot of different things from a personal and from a business perspective. So I'm actually going to speak to two sets of audiences today: individuals and, of course, business owners. So there might be some overlap here. There might be some stuff that might not be applicable to you, which is okay. But at least you get some context and walk away with some tangible action items moving forward as far as what you need to be looking at from a mid-year check-in perspective. And so I'll start here on the personal side. Just by way of background, I've been in the industry 21 years. Much of our work deals with executive women, professionals, which is predominantly physicians, attorneys, consultants, a lot of solopreneurs we deal with, senior level executives, and then owners of privately held businesses, which we find that there's a great challenge and also a great joy working with that segment. So again, much of this information is going to be applicable to two sets of audiences. So when we look at personal side, everyone has a personal financial life, right? And so there's going to be some areas here that you may have not thought of, and you've also may have been top of mind lately. And I think it's important to build a foundation. What I mean by that is that no different from the way you would build a house, we need to really have an understanding of what truly can compromise your entire financial foundation. We're going to get into that here in a minute. So normally this checklist that you're seeing in front of you would be done if I'm doing an annual review with a client or a quarterly review. And so it's a periodic checklist of things that we need to make sure that we stay on top of.
Can you share your screen again so I can pull it up?
I want to make sure that I'm doing that. Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
Sorry.
So no problem. No worries. Okay, let me just get back here. Make sure I'm doing that. How are we looking now?
Yeah, now we got it up.
Okay. So on the personal side, let's go over here on this side. So it says the first one is client has eliminated all unnecessary debt. Let's take an inventory of all the debts that you have, whether it be credit cards. Obviously, a lot of people have student loans out there. And so want to definitely do an inventory, a review of all your current debts and expenses for that matter. Really, I like to call it a cash flow plan. I don't like to call it a budget. And here's why. A budget's more micro, right? Day-to-day expenses, fixed expenses, and things of that nature. When we look at a cash flow plan, it encompasses all the different components of your entire financial life. Monies that should be used more for the short-term aspect. And really, I'll ask clients, what does short-term mean to you? Some people, they say it's less than a year. Some people say it's 2 years or less. It really depends upon what your perspective is of short-term. Intermediate, which is a little bit more, let's say 2 to 10 years, and then longer term is more 10 years and up, right? This first one is really, really important because unnecessary debt is like an anchor, like a heavy weight that's holding us down in terms of reaching our full potential. So we want to really assess what we're doing in that area. If we have any unnecessary debt, we want to make sure that we have a strategy to move forward with that addresses the timelines that we want to get these debts paid off, like high interest credit cards, right? I'm not counting mortgage, and there's a separate conversation as to why, but I'm talking about unnecessary debts, things that hold you down from being or realizing your truest financial potential. The second is adequate amount of short-term liquidity. And I can't stress this enough, especially in a pandemic where, people have lost their jobs, and the job market's starting to come around a little bit more now. So, people starting to get back to, in the office, starting to do stuff like that. But, even if you lost your job for 3 to 6 months or even longer, or even a year for that matter, which it's not uncommon, and it's quite heartbreaking to see people out of work for longer than 6 months or even a year for that matter. But having a short-term nest egg, and I hate the word emergency, and here's why. Emergency constitutes a reactive point of view, right? When we think of emergency, we think of reaction. Anything that we do with our clients, I like to promote proactiveness. And so I call it a contingency fund, right? Having a contingency fund, right? Making sure that we have a liquid slush fund to cover expenses in the event of the unforeseen. Could be sickness or injury, could be loss of work, things of that nature. We want to make sure that we have, and that, again, that's relative to what is applicable to you. Again, everyone's situation is different. The third is client has the right amount of life insurance. And I can't tell you how much life insurance was Googled last year in the height of the pandemic. Life insurance and estate planning were probably the two most Googled phrases that people search for and continue to search for. People get it. They want to be able to have the opportunity to understand what their options are and to protect their families and to protect their interests. Part of that is the role of life insurance. And notice I'm using the word role. What is the role of life insurance inside of your entire financial life? And that means having the right amounts and, of course, the right types of coverage, which we'll talk about here in a minute. So client has the right kinds of life insurance, of course, right? And again, I don't want to go into a long, drawn-out conversation about term versus permanent. Just understand that when we work with our clients, the idea is, or for that matter, what you should be looking at is, do I have the right amount and do I have the right types, right? That's fundamentally the conversation that we want to have when looking at your insurance coverages on the life insurance side. Number 5 talks about adequate disability insurance, all right? Sickness or injury, right? People can resonate with the phraseology, sickness or injury, right? Did you know that a disability stems more from a sickness versus an injury. And a lot of people don't know that, right? So it's not to say, hey, I get injured in a car accident and I can no longer work. It could be where you get a sickness and it prevents you from doing the substantial duties of your occupation and perhaps any other occupation for that matter, which you have reasonable education and experience to do so, right? So having enough disability insurance to cover at least minimum 60 to 70% of your pre-disability earned income level is absolutely very, very imperative. I'll point out a deficiency that a lot of people don't know about with disability insurance. So let's just say, for example, you have disability through your employer. Did you know that if your employer is paying for that disability coverage, if you were to file a claim, those benefits are taxable? Also, if that benefit is subsidized by you, all right, it's contributory, those benefits are tax-free. Now, normally in group coverages, you'll have a cap of a certain amount. So you'll see senior level executives as an example. I make $150,000 a year, but if I get disabled, I can get a certain amount of benefit up to X amount of coverage. And that might not even scratch the surface on what you actually even need to ensure that you cover your income, adequately for an extensive period of time should the event that you have a sickness or injury and you can no longer work. So disability planning is absolutely vital. I always say your greatest asset is your ability to produce an income. It's not your house. It's not a rental property. It's not a stock portfolio. It's none of that. Without income, none of this stuff exists. So your greatest asset is your ability to produce an income. Just think about a money machine in your house. If the money machine now completely just went out and it no longer produced money, now all of a sudden we're in a panic mode. Okay, well, what's happening? Well, so people start to get nervous about what's to come next. You never want to be in a position where your livelihood is compromised because you were inadequately prepared. And so I can't stress that enough about disability income protection planning. The next aspect is long-term care. Same thing, right? And so here's a unique stat. 7 out of 10 women over 65 will need some form of care. Now, when we think of long-term care, we think of maybe more of the latter stage of life type planning, right? And that could be further from the truth. You could be 35 years old and get sick or injured and end up where you may need care for an extensive period of time. And so long-term care planning is very, very important. I would like to say clients that are at least 45, maybe even starting to get to about age 50, start to really consider the impact of long-term care in their planning needs and what that means if they were to become stricken with a long-term care scenario, what that could mean toward their future livelihood, right? So we do a lot of work in this arena, but it's something that I urge you to take a look at when it comes down to addressing some of these different components that maybe you haven't even thought of. Long-term care could be one of them, right? If number 7 might not apply to you, could be college saving strategy, right? Having a proper college saving strategy, right? And there's different aspects and nuances, and we have to take into consideration the impact of the future cost of college and things of that nature, and weigh all those factors, and how much you're looking to subsidize of that particular endeavor. So there's specific goals that you may have in mind, so we can work with you in devising a plan to ensure that those needs are met, and for that matter, to ensure that if you do apply for financial aid, you can get the most financial aid possible. And so there's some nuances that we can share with you along those lines that can be very, very effective. Client has adequate amount of funding to support future college costs, right? And again, the rising aspects of college costs is tremendous. Wonder what it would be like 10 years from now. It's pretty staggering. So obviously, if we look at, an institution like here in Tampa, University of South Florida, right? I don't know off the top of my head what the tuition is, but I venture to say, it may be double that in 10 years, right? So again, really looking at the impact of the future cost of college, we should be looking at how we address that. Number one. Number two is really how to position your assets so that you qualify for the most benefits to pay for college. Okay, so those are some of the things that we want to consider. Adequate funding to achieve retirement goals. Okay, there are 4 inherent large questions that you need to make sure that you get answered in your lifetime, right? 4 important, very tough financial questions. One of them is, how much money do I need to put away on a monthly or annual basis to retire at my current standard of living and have my money last to my life expectancy? Okay, so the amount of funding to achieve my retirement goals, I need to be able to understand how much money is my client putting away now and what they should be putting away in the future. And then since helping them bridge that gap, not necessarily having them come out with new money out of pocket, but identifying where's the money going, helping them become more efficient so they can reach their maximum potential and thereby helping them reach their retirement goals faster. Client assets are allocated appropriately in alignment with their risk profile. Obviously, that's an investment discussion. I see a lot of people that I talk to have never really thought about the impact of risk when it relates to their investment portfolio, right? It's something that we should definitely take into consideration. It's definitely something that could cause problematic issues if you're not addressing it head on. And so, not to get too much into in depth, but every periodic review should have an understanding of what your investment goals are, and of course, then take into consideration the impact of risk on that portfolio moving forward. We never want a client to take undue risk, so we want to make sure that we minimize the impact as much as possible of the level of risk that they're taking. And then finally, client has adequate amount of estate planning. Like I mentioned, 2 most Google phrases last year were life insurance and estate planning. So, do you have a living will? Do you have a healthcare proxy, durable power of attorney in place? You should be working with a qualified professional, such as an estate planning attorney, to ensure that your documents are in order, right? How often should you review it? I would say at least 1 to 2 years, because family dynamics change. If you own a business, your business dynamics could change. A lot of different aspects could change in a very short period of time. So you don't want to go too much, especially I would say no more than 2 years without reviewing those important documents. And again, ensure that you're working with a qualified professional, again, an estate planning attorney that specializes in proactive planning, but can help you really make sure that your affairs are in order from a medical and financial perspective. So that's the personal side, right? Those are 11 items there that it's intensive, but at the end of the day, it's covering a lot of different bases when we look at it. That's a comprehensive financial strategy when we look at those 11 pieces there. It's addressing risk protection. It's addressing investments. It's addressing estate planning, college costs, things of that nature. These are all things that our clients are concerned about. So at least hopefully I've given you some sort of insight, and you can take 1 or 2 or even 3 of these. I would say no more than 3, and really focus on, hey, over the next 6 months, this is going to be my action plan moving forward. I'm going to address these specific issues, maybe stuff that I've been putting off for the last maybe 12 to 18 months or longer. And I'm going to get with a qualified professional to ensure that I've got these things in order. Whether you work with me or somebody else, that's up to you. I want to make sure that you are aware of some of these pitfalls and how to overcome them. So when we look at the business side, right? So I'm speaking to the business owners now, right? And we look at business owners have two dimensions, right? Their personal and their business, right? So the two often correlate, but they should never be commingled, I should say, right? So the first thing is client has addressed all business documents to include buy-sell agreements, key man protection, and employee benefits packages, right? So if you own a company, let's say that has 25 employees, right? And let's just say it's you and maybe perhaps another partner, or it's a family-owned business, whatever the case may be, you probably have heard these terms before, buy-sell agreements. So example is, you know, I have a partner and I die, right? Does that part, if I'm married, does my partner want my wife to become part owner now at this point, to have my share of the business at this point? More than likely, no, especially if she has no requisite experience in running the business. So there has to be some sort of transition capacity. And so how you do that is through what we call a buy-sell agreement, making sure that the individual's interest can be bought out. And of course, then, things like, for example, the question I would ask business owners is, do you have a potential name successor owner in the event that you're not here? See, no one wants to ever think about succession planning. We'll think that we'll work in our businesses for a very extensive period of time. And a lot of the business owners that I do talk to have that mentality. But at the end of the day, life is inevitable. And so these are things that we want to be cognizant of, ensure that we have in place. Key man protection. Might be an individual that is absolutely key and integral to your business. Do you have any programs right now in place to attract, reward, and retain your best people, right? That's where the employee benefit packages come in place. Stuff that is catered toward the executives, and of course, then stuff that is catered toward the ranking file of your company. And again, we can have these discussions and to ensure that all these different things are streamlined and efficient. Client has sufficient liquidity to meet operational expenses. How many business owners struggle because they have no access to capital, right? Or here's the other flip side, and this is a good problem to have, that they have too much liquidity on their balance sheet. And again, these are ideas that we can share with business owner clients, how to make the most use of the capital that they have in their business. Client has a named successor owner. I just talked about that earlier. And I think that is a huge aspect because, again, if you're neglecting that, think about not just you, but also the employees. If you have employees, think about what happens to the employees' lives now. Their livelihood is at risk if you're not in the picture. So it's important that there's some transitional aspects in your planning to ensure that if something were to happen, that the business could stay afloat and be able then to meet its long-term objectives. The impact of potential lawsuits and creditors. Some businesses are in a more litigious aspect than others, but the impact of an unforeseen lawsuit or creditor coming after you is, it's problematic. And so what safeguards do you have in place to protect your business and your personal assets? And finally, does a client have a true, I say written tax reduction strategy in place that is in coordination with your CPA professional that provides proactive tax planning advice? Now, let me break that down a little bit. When we look at a CPA, we think of tax preparation, right? I come to my CPA, I give them my stuff, they prepare my taxes, and they tell me maybe if I owe or not. And I believe the best CPAs out there really truly provide proactive planning and endorse proactive planning. And so many of our clients really like that concept because they want to be able to know that they have a team of advisors that is working with them to ensure that all these different bases are covered, right? But in light of the Biden tax proposals that are on the table, with the capital gains rate being what has been proposed, so for many of our high income earners that are in this threshold, not just income taxes, but also estate taxes. Do we have a true tax reduction strategy in place to counteract the maybe the likelihood of the increase of income taxes and potential estate taxes on your wealth? And so we want to make sure that we have these things in order, and they're reviewed on a consistent basis. So this checklist is pretty much what we would use for our individual and, of course, our business owner clients. But it gives them a roadmap and some things to consider when looking at their financial, strategies. When they look at their financial life and say, you know what, these are some of the things I'm doing well, and these are some of the things I know I need to improve. And here's some of the things that are blind spots, things that they haven't really never addressed or never really thought about. And that's why these conversations are very vital, because at least in our case and what we do, we like to be proactive, and encourage our clients to think in a proactive manner. So this is the checklist that we use. I really enjoy working with clients and being able to share this information, because many of these areas has, in one way, shape, or form, affected your life, or could affect your life if you're not, planning correctly. And so my encouragement to you is to ensure that this second half of the year that you're diligent in looking at your financial life in a much different perspective, so that you can meet some of the goals and objectives, or even all the goals and objectives that you're looking to accomplish.
Wow, Roger, that was great. There was a lot of great information and an amazing checklist to have. I would love anyone, if you have any questions, to write them in. But one question, or I don't know why I'm echoing right now. 7 out of 10 women over 65 will need some sort of long-term care.
Yep.
That's wild.
Yep.
And it's definitely something we don't talk enough about. We do a lot of long-term care. We do a lot of talks about long-term care, but again, everyone thinks they don't need it. But it's amazing what happens if you don't have some of the stuff in plan. Because we've talked to enough people who've dealt with it on the receiving end of, I had to be the caretaker, or it's not always about like for yourself, but it's for that other person, or if you don't have your will and trust,
right.
It's not you who had to go through the courts. It's your person that you love, that you left everything else to.
Exactly.
Which is always interesting. So I think this was a great checklist.
Thank you.
It was something that I earlier in the first half of the year worked on getting my will and some of those papers in place, power of attorney, because we are over, 18. So, no one can pay my bills or make my medical decisions. So I knew this was something that had to be important,
right.
As well. Let me see what else we have. And so you also do help with some college planning as well.
Yes.
So do you work with people then, the families, or do you like to work with the kids before they go to college? Or are you talking more parents that go back to school?
It's both.
Okay.
I think the biggest thing is when parents plan for college, obviously the time frame that they start thinking about that is very, very important. Mm-hmm. Preferably when the child is, younger and there's still a lot of time to be had. But, a lot of the clients that we'll come across will start planning when the child's 10, 9 years old. And it's just simply not a lot of time to be able to develop the assets needed to cover the rising cost of college.
It's expensive.
And so, yeah. And so it's really a conversation of how much they want to subsidize. Mm-hmm. What are they looking to accomplish? What's their goal and objective at that point? Are there any programs to provide free money, like mm-hmm. grants and scholarships and things of that nature? Even from that standpoint of being able to have assets protected against the financial aid calculation.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting, because
yep.
I can see how that really plays into it, and
mm-hmm.
getting that financial aid is a huge difference. Huge.
So to give you a little insight, life insurance, annuities, and pension plans are all protected from the financial aid calculation. And so when they look at your assets, they'll say, here's your income, here's your assets, and they say that you have stocks and real estate and other types of assets. But as an example, cash value life insurance is exempted from financial aid.
Nice.
So that could be a potential planning tool in putting together a true college funding strategy.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I can see, I mean, there's a lot of moving parts that you do have to talk through. But I can see how that plan could really be beneficial to families. And I think a lot of it is, like you said, is really being proactive rather than reactive in all these situations. No, we don't want to talk about death, but we all die. It's crazy. So it's not always the best conversations, but we do need to think about others and think about ourselves in the best situation we're going to put ourselves in at those vulnerable times if we need care, if we're out of work, all these different things.
Absolutely.
Let me see what Barb has to say on here.
Roger, that was a great list. Very comprehensive, very clear, and a great checklist for either those of us planning for retirement, those of us planning for childhood or having children and planning for their education, as well as business owners. So really, really comprehensive. Would you say, Roger, the best gift a grandparent can give their grandchild is a 529 plan?
That's a great question. And there's a lot of advantages to a 529 plan. Obviously, getting money out of the parent's estate. And obviously the limits in terms of what you can put in are quite substantial. So those are some benefits there. I'll share this as well. Life insurance as a tool to help children and grandchildren plan for college is extremely important. That's a foundational piece to a college funding strategy. But no, 529 plans are a great vehicle if they're used properly. And our clients understand the drawbacks as well. Obviously, if the money's not used for college, there's some negatives there, but I think it's important to understand all the different pros and cons of all these different strategies and how they all correlate together, because I think it's not just one vehicle that can help you reach the goal. It's a combination of different aspects and true planning. So it's really taking into consideration, well, how do I get as much financial aid as I can possibly qualify for? There's potential scholarships and maybe grants that I can get access to. A lot of free money out there for college. So, what can we do to actually obtain some of that, and really be able to cover or defray a lot of these different costs. And, and I often say, I was like, are you looking to cover 100% of the cost of college? 50%? What's that number look like for you? What's the goal? And I think, having a real candid conversation about that, because some goals are just unrealistic, indicative of the time frame.
Yeah.
And so we got to make sure that we understand, that we have to set some realistic expectations.
Yeah.
And here's the other thing too that I want to make mention. It's not, we shouldn't take away from our own retirement perspective in lieu of college.
Got it.
And that's a huge no-no.
Yeah.
And I see that a lot is, well, I want to send my kids to private school, but, I'm going to stop funding my 401k for a couple of years and convert that money to, my college funding strategy. No. It's just like a client would say, well, I have to pay off all this debt first before I can start saving. No. It's and that's where I see a lot of people in our industry really do a disservice to our clients is essentially planning in a piecemealed way, right? Whereas if we can help clients plan comprehensively and proactively, that's really what's important to people. Is I can see all my affairs in order in one type of, context. And as my needs change, I can always adapt and change. But it should never be a specific goal, first and then do this. It should be a combination of these different things, and then maybe ordering them in order of priority, and that's important, but never in lieu of, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I like how you look at the big picture and look at all the different wheels that get turned, and making sure that you still keep your eye on the prize, right? On what your intentions are, what your goals are. So it's great. This has been fabulous, actually. I've taken a lot of notes. So we will pull together our one pager that we have for everybody when we provide and package this up. For anybody who couldn't make the live, we always have it as a recording. So fabulous information. And I can't thank you enough.
That's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
Of course. So one more time, this is Roger Silvera. He was from, is that how you pronounce it?
Yep.
Oh, yes. Roger Silvera from the New York Life Insurance Company. You can always reach him at rsilvera@ft.newyorklife.com. He's also one of our Purse Strings approved professionals, so you can check him out on our site, pursestrings.co. Reach out to him if you have any other questions about this. He would love to talk more with you. So we'll see everyone again here next week, same time, same place. And have a great rest of your week. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Roger.
Thank you.